The recruitment. THX stood motionless on the bridge of the terminal consequence, his chrome-plated scales reflecting the holographic displays surrounding him. The massive Kronxian commander's reputation for eating battleships wasn't just a metaphor, his species could actually digest metal, and he'd made quite a show of consuming parts of conquered vessels in front of their defeated crews. But right now, something was bothering him about the latest additions to his legendary mercenary group. "So let me understand this correctly," he rumbled, each word vibrating through the command deck like distant thunder. "These humans successfully infiltrated 3 of our recruitment stations, passed every combat trial while severely handicapped by environmental suits, and then revealed themselves only after signing the contracts." His second-in-command, a quantum phase assassin named NX-427, flickered in and out of reality as she responded. "Correct, Commander. They exploited a loophole in our recruitment protocols. Since we never specifically banned their species, and they met all performance metrics, we're legally bound to honor their contracts." THX's metallic tongue flicked out, tasting the recycled air of the bridge. "And why, exactly, should I not space them immediately and deal with the legal consequences later?" A new voice joined the conversation, surprisingly confident for someone addressing the galaxy's most feared mercenary commander. "Because we're your best chance at completing your next contract, sir." THX turned to face the human who had spoken. Sarah Chen stood at parade rest, wearing the modified environmental suit that kept her alive in the ship's methane-rich atmosphere. Despite being nearly 3 meters shorter than the Kronxian commander, she showed no sign of intimidation. "Explain," THX demanded, his scales rippling with barely contained irritation. "Your next contract is to crush the Outer Rim Colonial Rebellion," Sarah stated. "The same rebellion that's been embarrassing the Drachnid Empire for the past 3 cycles. We know exactly how they think, how they fight, and most importantly, why they're winning." THX's compound eyes narrowed. "And why is that?" "Because they're human too." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "The colonies are Earth's first extrasolar settlements. The Drachnid Empire doesn't know this because humans are masters of hiding in plain sight. We've been establishing colonies under various shell corporations and false identities for years." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. THX's massive form shifted, his scales creating a sound like thousands of coins being shuffled. "You're telling me," he finally said, "that your species deliberately scattered themselves across the Outer Rim, knowing the Empire would eventually try to subjugate those colonies?" "Not exactly," Sarah replied. "We scattered ourselves across the Outer Rim because humanity has one defining trait that the Empire will never understand: we're pathologically curious. We see a habitable planet, we want to live there. We see a strange alien empire, we want to study it. We see advanced technology, we want to take it apart and see how it works." She gestured to herself and the other humans who had gathered on the bridge. "That's why we're here. The Void Reapers are legendary. You have technology and combat techniques from a dozen different species. We want to learn it all. And in exchange, we'll help you complete this contract in a way that benefits everyone." THX's translator took a moment to process her next words. "We'll help you stage the most spectacular fake rebellion suppression in galactic history." The Kronxian commander's scales shifted from chrome to a deep copper color, a sign of intense interest in his species. "You propose betraying our contract with the Empire?" "Not at all," Sarah corrected. "The contract specifies crushing the rebellion and restoring order. It doesn't specify how. We can give you a victory that will enhance the Void Reaper's reputation, satisfy the Empire, and preserve the colony's independence, all while giving your crews combat experience against human ingenuity." She paused before delivering her final point. "Plus, if you space us, you'll never know how we managed to infiltrate your recruitment stations in the first place. Wouldn't that gap in your security protocols bother you?" THX's scales rippled again, this time in what might have been amusement. "You are either the most brilliant or the most foolish beings I've encountered in 3 centuries of warfare. He turned to address his bridge crew. Signal the rest of the fleet. Set course for the outer rim. And get our new colleagues proper quarters and equipment. I want to see exactly what these humans can do. As the bridge erupted into activity, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 of the plan was complete. Now came the hard part, convincing the galaxy's deadliest mercenaries to become unwitting participants in humanity's greatest practical joke. The story of how humans had ended up scattered across the outer rim was both simpler and more complicated than Sarah had implied. It had started, as many human endeavors did, with a combination of curiosity, opportunism, and what other species might call a disturbing lack of common sense. When humanity first detected signs of alien civilization, instead of making official contact, a consortium of private space exploration companies had decided to send out dozens of small, fast scout ships. Their mission: gather intelligence and establish footholds before anyone realized Earth existed. The scouts found a galaxy dominated by the Drachnid Empire, a bureaucratic nightmare of a government that had achieved stability through strict regulation of everything from technology to toilet paper. But they also found the Empire's blind spot. They were so focused on maintaining order that they never looked too closely at small, seemingly insignificant colony operations. So humanity did what it did best: it adapted. Using a complex web of shell companies, false identities, and carefully crafted paperwork, human colonies spread throughout the outer rim. They presented themselves as various minor species, always staying just below the Empire's notice. They bought outdated equipment, learned to modify it, and slowly built their strength. When the Empire finally decided to fully absorb the outer rim territories, they found what they thought were disparate colonies of various species. Instead, they had stumbled into humanity's testing ground, a place where Earth's finest engineers and warriors had spent years learning to turn the Empire's own technology against it. And now, Sarah mused as she watched THX issue orders to his crew. They were about to add the Void Reaper's considerable capabilities to their arsenal. The infamous mercenary group had no idea they were about to become teachers rather than conquerors. The next few weeks promised to be very interesting indeed. As Sarah left the bridge, she caught fragments of conversation between the ship's various crew members. A Kronxian berserker was arguing with a quantum phase assassin about the optimal way to breach a fortified position. A hive mind engineer was reconfiguring weapon systems while simultaneously carrying on 12 different technical discussions with itself. These were the deadliest warriors in known space, each possessed of capabilities that seemed like magic to most species. And soon, thanks to humanity's endless desire to learn and adapt, they would be unwitting instructors in the galaxy's most ambitious training exercise. Sarah tapped her communicator, sending a prearranged signal to the other human operatives scattered throughout the Void Reaper's fleet. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Now they just had to maintain their cover, learn everything they could, and prepare for the moment when they would need to reveal just how much humanity had been hiding. The terminal consequences engines hummed as the massive vessel prepared for faster-than-light travel. Soon they would reach the outer rim, where the real show would begin. Sarah just hoped the colonists would pick up on their signals quickly enough to play their parts convincingly. After all, it wasn't every day you got to stage a fake war using the galaxy's most elite mercenary force as unwitting training instructors. The game was on, and humanity was playing for keeps. First contact. The terminal consequence dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri 459 system, its massive form casting a shadow across the distant stars. In the ship's primary training chamber, Sarah Chen was getting her atoms rearranged. Again, growled NX 427, the quantum phase assassin's form flickering like a bad hologram. Your molecular coherence is still too rigid. Sarah gritted her teeth and attempted, for the 20th time that day, to phase shift her body through the training barrier. The technology that allowed quantum phase assassins to move through solid matter had never been successfully used by humans before. Then again, nobody had ever had the chance to learn directly from one. You're thinking too linearly, NX 427 chided. Reality isn't a solid wall, it's more like, how do humans say it? Swiss cheese. Swiss cheese with attitude, Sarah muttered, earning a sound from NX-427 that might have been a laugh. Over the past week, the assassin had taken an unexpected interest in training the humans, seemingly fascinated by their ability to grasp concepts that most species found incomprehensible. Their training session was interrupted by THX's voice booming through the ship's comm system. All combat specialists to the war room. We've made contact with the first rebel stronghold. Sarah exchanged glances with NX-427. This was it, the first test of their elaborate deception. In the war room, THX loomed over a holographic display of the Centauri 459 colony. The massive Kronxian scales had shifted to a deep bronze color, indicating intense concentration. Around him, the Void Reapers elite gathered, Kronxian berserkers with their crystalline armor, hive-mind engineers trailing clouds of nanobots, and dozens of other deadly specialists. The colony's defenses are unusual, THX rumbled. They've modified their mineral extractors into some sort of gravitational weapon array. Our standard approach vectors are compromised. Sarah studied the hologram, hiding a smile. She recognized the work of Dr. Emily Wong, Earth's leading expert in gravitational manipulation. The colonists were already putting on quite a show. If I may, Commander, she stepped forward. Those defense patterns suggest they're expecting a direct assault. They've never faced the Void Reapers before, they don't know about our more specialized capabilities. THX's compound eyes fixed on her. You have a suggestion? A joint operation, Sarah replied. My team has been training with NX-427. If she can phase us through their outer defenses, we can disable their gravitational arrays from the inside. Meanwhile, the Kronxian berserkers can launch a frontal assault as a distraction. The plan was, of course, carefully designed to showcase both the Void Reapers' abilities and human adaptability. The colonists would be ready for them, staging a resistance that would appear fierce while actually serving as a training exercise. THX considered the proposal, his scales shifting through various metallic hues. Ambitious, he finally rumbled. But if you fail, you'll be trapped behind enemy lines with no support. Then we better not fail, Sarah replied with a confidence that made several alien warriors shift uncomfortably. Humans, they were learning, had an unsettling tendency to treat impossible situations as interesting challenges. The operation began 3 hours later. Sarah, along with 5 other humans, clung to NX-427 as the quantum phase assassin carried them through solid rock and metal. The sensation was indescribable, like being turned into mist while remaining somehow conscious. Your molecular cohesion is improving, NX-427 noted as they emerged inside the colony's main defense center. You're adapting to the phase shift more quickly than expected. We're good at adapting, Sarah replied, trying not to show how much the phase shift had affected her. Outside, they could hear the Kronxian berserkers beginning their assault, their crystalline war cries shaking the very ground. The colonial defenders reacted exactly as planned, with just enough competence to make their resistance believable, but not enough to seriously threaten the Void Reapers. Sarah's team moved through the facility, carefully sabotaging equipment in ways that would be easy to repair later. Then something went wrong. A group of colonial defenders rounded a corner, led by a familiar face, Dr. Emily Wong herself. The physicist's eyes widened in recognition before she could stop herself. It was just a momentary slip, but Sarah saw NX-427's form flicker in a way that suggested sudden attention. Interesting, the assassin said softly. They don't seem surprised to see humans among us. Sarah's mind raced. This was a complication they hadn't planned for. Why would they be? She replied smoothly. Humans are all over the outer rim. We're like space cockroaches, we get everywhere. The exchange was interrupted by a massive explosion that rocked the facility. The colonial defenders used the distraction to retreat, but Sarah could tell that NX-427 was filing away this interaction for future reference. The operation continued according to plan. The gravitational arrays were disabled, allowing the Void Reaper's fleet to move into position. The colony surrendered exactly when expected, with exactly the right amount of resistance to make it convincing. But later, in her quarters, Sarah knew they had a problem. She activated her quantum-encrypted communicator, sending a message to the other human operatives. They're starting to notice patterns. We need to accelerate the timeline. The response came from Dr. Wong, agreed. Moving to Phase 2. Hope you're ready for some improvisation. Sarah laughed quietly. Improvisation was practically humanity's species motto. Meanwhile, in his private chambers, THX was reviewing combat footage from the battle. His artificial intelligence assistant had noticed something curious, microscopic variations in the colonial defenders' tactics that suggested pre-planned responses. It was subtle, the kind of pattern that would only emerge after analyzing thousands of data points. Curious, the Kronxian commander rumbled, his scales shifting to the copper-gold color of deep thought. Run a cross-reference of all known combat databases. Find me anyone else who fights like these colonists. The AI's response was immediate, match found. Tactical patterns share 89% similarity with historical records from a previously unknown world designated Earth. THX's metallic tongue flicked out thoughtfully. The humans had been right about one thing, this mission was definitely going to be interesting. The next few days saw a flurry of activity as the Void Reapers consolidated their hold on Centauri 459. On the surface, everything proceeded according to plan. But beneath the obvious military maneuvers, a complex dance was taking place. The humans among the Void Reapers continued their training, absorbing combat techniques and technological knowledge at a rate that would have been alarming if anyone had been paying proper attention. Meanwhile, the colonial rebels continued their carefully choreographed resistance, each defeat designed to reveal just enough of their capabilities to make victory seem hard-won. Sarah found herself walking an increasingly thin line between maintaining their cover and exploiting every opportunity to learn from the galaxy's deadliest warriors. The quantum phase technology was just the beginning, there were hive-mind engineering principles to master, Kronxian combat techniques to adapt, and countless other skills that humanity had never had access to before. But time was running out. THX was no fool, and the patterns were becoming harder to hide. The next phase of their plan would have to begin soon, ready or not. As the terminal consequence prepared to move against the next colonial target, Sarah received another encrypted message from Dr. Wong, "Hope you've learned enough, because things are about to get complicated. The Empire's getting impatient, and we've just detected a Drachnid battle fleet heading for the Outer Rim. Time to show them what humanity can really do." Sarah stared at the message for a long moment before sending a single reply, "Well, we wanted to test our new skills anyway. Tell everyone to get ready, it's time for the galaxy's deadliest mercenaries to learn why you should never underestimate human creativity." The game was about to change, and nobody, not even the Void Reapers, was truly prepared for what would happen next. Escalation. The holograms flickered in THX's private war chamber, displaying tactical data from the past 3 weeks of operations. The Kronxian commander's scales had taken on a silvery sheen of deep concentration as he studied the patterns emerging from their campaign against the colonial rebels. "Show me the quantum signature analysis again," he rumbled. The AI complied, overlaying the combat data with spectral readings from their encounters. Something wasn't adding up. The colonists' resistance was textbook perfect, too perfect. Each defeat revealed new tactical data, each retreat left behind just enough salvageable technology to be tantalizing. It was almost as if his meditation was interrupted by a priority alert. The Drachnid battle fleet had arrived at the edge of the sector, 3 days ahead of schedule. In the Terminal Consequences primary engineering bay, Sarah Chen was having her own revelation. She stood surrounded by the hovering nanobots of Junior Engineering Specialist HR 2187, a fragment of the ship's HiveMind engineering collective. The tiny machines swirled around her in complex patterns as she worked to interface her environmental suit with their control protocols. Fascinating, HR 2187's voices echoed in unison from a dozen speakers. Your species' approach to collective problem-solving is unorthodox. Humans have always been good at networking, Sarah replied, carefully adjusting the quantum resonance of her suit's communication array. We just do it differently than most species. The HiveMind engineer had spent the past week teaching her the basics of their technology, how to communicate with and control the nanobots that formed the backbone of the Void Reaper's maintenance and repair systems. Like everything else humans had learned from the mercenaries, they'd adapted it in ways its creators had never imagined. Her communicator chimed, a priority message from Dr. Wong, Drachnid fleet incoming. Time to show our cards. Before Sarah could respond, THX's voice boomed through the ship's communication system, all combat specialists to the war chamber. Priority Alpha. In the war chamber, the atmosphere was tense. The holographic displays showed the approaching Drachnid fleet, 15 capital ships backed by dozens of support vessels. The Empire, THX announced, has decided to take a more direct interest in our operation. His compound eyes swept the room. They seemed to believe we're being too gentle with the rebels. Several of the alien warriors shifted uncomfortably. Their campaign had been anything but gentle by normal standards. The fact that the colonies had managed to survive at all was remarkable, or suspicious, depending on your perspective. High Admiral Zexer himself commands the fleet, THX continued. He's demanding we coordinate our next assault with his forces. Apparently, the Empire wants to make an example of these colonies. Sarah felt her heart rate increase. This was the moment they'd been preparing for, but it was happening faster than planned. She caught glimpses of the other human operatives around the room, each positioned near their alien mentors. They'd learned so much in the past weeks, now it was time to put that knowledge to use. Commander, she stepped forward, drawing all eyes in the room. I have a suggestion. THX's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. You usually do. The Empire wants a show of force. Let's give them one. But let's do it the Void Reaper way, not as a simple hammer, but as a precision instrument. She gestured to the tactical display. We've learned these colonies' tactics, their technologies, their patterns. Let us lead specialized strike teams, combining what we've learned from you with our unique understanding of colonial thinking. The Kronxian commander studied her for a long moment. And why should I trust you with such authority? Sarah met his gaze steadily. Because you've already figured it out, haven't you? The patterns, the quantum signatures, the way everything fits together just a little too perfectly. A heavy silence fell over the war chamber. Even the Pyroxan berserkers, normally restless, stood perfectly still. You knew, THX said finally, his scales shifting to a deep copper color. You knew from the beginning because you're one of them. All of you. He gestured to the humans scattered throughout his crew. Not exactly, Sarah replied. We're not colonists, we're something else entirely. And we're about to show you why the Empire should have paid more attention to that little planet called Earth. Before THX could respond, the tactical displays exploded with new data. The colonial defense systems were activating, but not in any way they'd seen before. Quantum phase generators merged with gravitational arrays, creating defensive patterns that shouldn't have been possible. Swarms of nanobots emerged from hidden caches, reconfiguring colonial infrastructure in real time. They've been learning from us, NX-427 said, her form flickering with what might have been admiration. All this time, while we thought we were studying them. We were studying each other, Sarah finished. And now we're going to show the Empire why that was a very, very good thing. The next few hours were chaos. The human operatives among the Void Reapers revealed just how much they'd learned, and adapted, from their alien mentors. Sarah led a team combining quantum phase technology with hive-mind engineering principles, creating infiltration squads that could phase through solid matter while controlling swarms of nanobots. Other humans demonstrated equally impossible combinations. Pyroxene crystal technology merged with Earth metallurgy, creating armor that could withstand direct hits from capital ship weapons. Quantum communication arrays linked with colonial defense systems in ways that made traditional electronic warfare obsolete. The colonists, receiving their signal, dropped all pretense of being simple rebels. Their true capabilities, enhanced by weeks of careful observation and learning, transformed them from scattered settlements into a coordinated defense force that moved with the precision of a hive mind and the unpredictability of human inspiration. THX watched it all from the terminal consequences bridge, his scales cycling through colors never before seen on a Kronxian. Magnificent, he rumbled finally. You never intended to crush the rebellion at all. This was about something else entirely. It was about learning, Sarah explained, now standing proudly in a modified environmental suit that incorporated both quantum phase and hive mind technology. Humans have one overwhelming drive: to understand, to adapt, to grow. You showed us possibilities we never imagined, and we showed you combinations you never considered. And now? THX asked, gesturing to the approaching Drachnid fleet. Sarah's smile was visible even through her suit's faceplate. Now we show the Empire why they should have read the fine print on those colonial registration forms more carefully. And why the Void Reapers might want to consider a more permanent arrangement with humanity. As if on cue, new signals began appearing on the tactical displays, ships emerging from hyperspace at precise coordinates around the sector. But these weren't colonial vessels or Empire ships. They were something else entirely, hybrid craft combining Earth ingenuity with technologies learned from a dozen different species. The true face of humanity's presence in the galaxy was about to be revealed, and nothing would ever be the same. Well, THX rumbled, his scales settling into a deep gold color of decisive action, I believe it's time to renegotiate our contract with the Empire. And perhaps discuss a new one with Earth. The war chamber erupted in activity as the Void Reapers prepared for battle, not as mercenaries fighting for pay, but as warriors about to participate in something unprecedented, the emergence of humanity as a force that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The real question was, would the Empire recognize what was happening before it was too late to adapt?